Before we begin, I want to name something that might already be happening in your body, not as a metaphor or as theory, but as a physical process. Your body can register threat before your mind finds the words. And if you've ever wondered why you can understand your patterns clearly, but still get pulled into the same reactions, well, this is why. This episode is about that gap, the space between insight and reflex, and what it means when your body is still trying to keep you alive, even when your life has already changed. Welcome back to The Void and the Flame. I'm Rachel, or Ray, and before we go any further, I want to stay with something that you may have felt in your body. In the last episode and in the choice point that followed, we slowed down a moment most people move past. That quiet space right before you explain or right before you manage the room. That subtle tightening. It's like a forward pull. That moment that your breath changed before your words did. If you noticed anything like that, even faintly, you didn't imagine it. It was your nervous system coming online. And here's the part that most people, I feel like, weren't really taught. Your nervous system reacts before you think, and it doesn't ask what's true. It asks what's survivable. And that order matters because many of us were taught the opposite. That insight should change behavior, that if you know better, you should do better. But if that were true, most of us would have stopped repeating the same patterns years ago. And yet, here you are. Here we are. Not because you're broken and not because you lack willpower, but because your body is still organized around survival. And that's what we're unpacking today. There's a common misconception that I would like to clear up. Most people think trauma means something extreme, a big event, a catastrophe, something obvious. And if nothing like that happened, then they assume the word doesn't apply. But trauma isn't the event. Trauma is what your nervous system had to organize around in order to survive. And it didn't organize just your thoughts. It organized your breath, your muscle tone, your posture, your voice, your timing. It organized your whole body. For some people, that organization came from obvious danger. For others, it came from unpredictability, from having to read the room, from learning that honesty created conflict, that needs created burden, that anger risked connection. So the body adapted, not because you were weak, because your nervous system learned what reduced threat and what preserved connection. That adaptation is what we call trauma, not the story of what happened, the shape that your nervous system took to survive it. Your nervous system is not designed to make you happy. It's not designed to make you wise or anything like that. It is designed to keep you alive. That's it. And it works in a simple sequence. First, something registers as threatening. Not dangerous, just unfamiliar, unpredictable, or relationally risky. Second, the body activates. Your breath shifts, muscles tighten or collapse, attention narrows. This happens before thought. Third, the nervous system adapts. It selects whatever response reduces threat or stabilizes the connection. That response gets encoded. Once something works, the nervous system tags it as reliable. Not temporary, reliable. From that point on, it runs automatically when something feels similar. This is why memory isn't stored primarily in narrative. It's stored in sensation, in your muscle tone, in timing, in reaction speed. Your body remembers how it survived, even when your mind has a different story now. That's the map. Now, here's where it gets painful. You can see the pattern, you can name it, you can understand it, and still, in the moment, your body runs the old response anyway. So the mind turns inward. I should be past this. I know better. What is wrong with me? That voice sounds like accountability, but it's not. It's shame trying to correct a nervous system. Because awareness changes meaning. It doesn't change wiring. Insight helps you recognize the pattern, but it doesn't tell the body that the danger's past. So when awareness arrives before safety, the reaction doesn't stop. It tightens. Not because it wants to hurt you, because it thinks it has to protect you. If insight has ever made you feel more frustrated instead of free, nothing is wrong with you. You are watching a nervous system do exactly what it was designed to do, without yet knowing that the danger ended. And that's where the real work begins. I want to pause here for a moment, not to make this about me, but to show you what this looks like in real time. I'm sure you can see me and you probably might think, man, she looks like she hasn't slept. She looks really tired. Well, I'll be honest, I almost didn't record this episode today. Not because I didn't believe in the message, but because life has been showing up and testing it. My body has been massively overloaded. My nervous system has been spiking nonstop. I have been tight, restless, irritable, and hyper aware of everything happening around me. Sleep has been off. My body has felt constantly braced lately. I want to tell you guys that hard moments don't always happen because someone did something wrong. Sometimes they happen because a nervous system can't hold one more thing. And if you wait until you're calm to speak up and say how you're feeling, you're usually already too late. The earlier you notice your body, the gentler those moments can be. Nervous system work isn't about avoiding conflict or discomfort. It's about noticing when your system is overloaded, responding instead of reacting, and, choosing repair over rumination. Now, the tricky part is that when we live like this long enough, we stop recognizing this as overload. It just becomes normal. And if you're waiting to feel calm before you practice this, you'll probably never start. The practice is what you do after the spike. There's something I want to take a moment to try to correct. Most people have been taught to think of their nervous system responses as problems. Hypervigilance is called anxiety. Shutdown is called depression. People-pleasing is called weak boundaries. And dissociation is called avoidance. And then we try to get rid of all of them. Medicate them, override them, discipline them, think them away. But what if none of these were defects? What if they were intelligence? Not conscious intelligence, not moral intelligence, but biological intelligence. Because every single one of these responses exists for a reason. Hypervigilance is what happens when danger was unpredictable. Your body learned to scan constantly because threat did not come with a warning label. So it stayed alert, not because you were broken, because you were smart enough to survive. Shutdown is what happens when fight or fleeing wasn't possible, when there was nowhere to go, no one to stop, no way to win. So your nervous system learned how to go quiet, how to disappear internally, how to numb sensations so pain wouldn't destroy you. That's not weakness, that's biological engineering. People-pleasing is what happens when connection was the only form of safety, when being liked, needed, or agreeable was what kept you from being targeted. So your body learned how to read people perfectly, how to anticipate needs, how to smooth tension, how to become what the room required. That's not lack of boundaries. That's social survival genius. Dissociation is what happens when reality itself was too much to stay inside. So your mind learned how to leave, and not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, invisible way that let you keep functioning. That's not avoidance, that's an emergency exit. None of these are random. None of these are failures. They are adaptations to environments that required them. Not all survival adaptations collapse inward. Some collapse outward. Some become control, entitlement, or cruelty. Those patterns are also organized by survival, and they still cause real harm. And here's the part most people have never been told. Your nervous system didn't create these patterns to ruin your life. It created them to save your life. Even the ones that now cost you something. Even the ones you wish you didn't have. Even the ones that confuse you or embarrass you or make you feel like you're behind everyone else. They were not mistakes. They were solutions. And they were the best solutions available with the information your body had at the time. And this is the line I want you to hear clearly. Your nervous system did not fail you. Your nervous system protected you. That doesn't mean these patterns are meant to run your life forever. And it doesn't mean that they don't hurt you now. Both of those things can be true. A survival response can be brilliant and outdated at the same time. It can be sacred and costly. It can deserve gratitude and retirement. And here's where the reframe becomes real. If your symptoms are intelligence, if your reactions are strategies, if your patterns are protection, then hating them is hating that part of you that kept you alive. And when you do that, your nervous system doesn't soften, it tightens. Because now it thinks the danger is coming from inside you. Which means it has to protect you from you. That's why self-attack never heals trauma. It recreates it. So when you notice yourself saying, I hate that I do this. I wish I wasn't like this. Why am I so broken? I need to get rid of this part of me. What you're actually talking to is your inner emergency response system. The part of you that stood watch in the dark. The part of you that took the hit so the rest of you could keep going. The part of you that adapted its entire personality to survive the environment you were in. That part doesn't need punishment. It needs safety. It needs orientation to the present. It needs to learn that the war is over. And this is where something profound happens. The moment you stop treating your symptoms like enemies and start treating them like protectors, your entire internal relationship shifts. You move out of civil war and into alliance. You stop asking, how do I get rid of this? And start asking, what did this part of me need when it learned to exist? I feel like that question alone starts unwiring trauma. Not because it fixes anything, but because it removes threat. And threat is what keeps survival responses alive. This doesn't make you passive. This makes you precise. Because now you're no longer fighting symptoms. You're listening to messages. And that's where we're going next. Because once you understand that your reactions are intelligent, you can finally understand what they are trying to tell you. Before we go any further, we need to name something quietly radical. Your body is not only reacting to the present moment, it's reacting to the past that still lives inside your nervous system. This is the part most people miss when they try to rewrite their story. The story from episode 2 didn't get stored in your thoughts. It got stored in your body, in your muscle tone, in your breathing patterns, your posture, how quickly you speak, how fast you say yes, or how long you wait before you say no. It gets stored in the tightening of your jaw when someone's disappointed, in the drop in your stomach when a voice changes tone, in the way that your shoulders lift when you feel responsible for someone else's feelings. This is why insight alone doesn't change your reactions. Because the body doesn't run on narrative. It runs on sensation, timing, probability. Your nervous system learned the story through lived experiences, through repetition, through consequences, through what happened after you spoke or after you cried or after you needed something, after you said no. So when a familiar tone appears, a familiar look, a familiar tension in a room, your body doesn't check the calendar. It doesn't ask, is this actually dangerous now? It says, this feels like that. And it organizes your response before your mind gets a vote. This is why you can be in a safe relationship and still feel braced. Why you can be respected and still feel on edge. Why you can logically know you're not in trouble and still feel like you are. Your body isn't confused. It's loyal. It's still running the rule that once kept you safe. And here's the part that changes everything. Your body doesn't remember the story as words. It remembers it as sensation, tension, pressure, readiness, collapse, holding. That's why the reaction arrives before the thought. That's why your chest tightens before you can explain why. Why your breath changes before you can name what you're feeling. Why your shoulders lift before you decide what to say. Your nervous system isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to complete something that once had to be interrupted. A response that never got to finish. It's trying to protect you from a danger that used to be real. So when your body reacts too strongly, it's not because you're dramatic. It's because your nervous system is still living inside a story that your life has already outgrown. And that's what we're actually working on. Not a mindset problem, not a discipline problem, definitely not a willpower problem. A memory problem that isn't stored in words. And once you understand that, you stop fighting your reactions. You start to listen to them. You get really curious about what it is that they're trying to say. Because your body isn't holding pathology, it's holding history, and it's waiting for you to notice. Now, we need to name something that changes how you hear everything you've ever called a trigger. Your reactions are not failures, they are messages. They are your nervous system trying to communicate something that never got to complete, like we just talked about. Every reaction you have, whether it's over explaining, freezing, snapping, people pleasing, pulling away, spiraling, collapsing, whatever it might look like for you, it's all an attempt at protection, not from what's happening now, but from what happened then. And this is why your reactions don't scale logically to the present moment. Why something small can create a huge internal response. Why your body reacts like your life is on the line when it objectively isn't. Your nervous system isn't responding to the content of the moment. It's responding to the pattern that it recognizes. Your nervous system is not trying to get rid of the reaction. It's actually just trying to finish something. Tension is unfinished action. It's the body holding a response that never got to complete. A boundary you never got to set, a no you couldn't say, a truth you couldn't speak, or an anger that you couldn't express. Heck, a grief you couldn't feel safely. So the reaction keeps returning, not because you're stuck or because you're regressing, but because your body is still holding that unfinished business. This is why suppressing reactions doesn't heal them, why reframing them doesn't dissolve them, why shaming them makes them louder. Your nervous system isn't looking for discipline. It's looking for attunement. It's looking for safety while the reaction completes itself. And this is where everything shifts. When you stop treating your reaction as problems to eliminate and start treating them as communications to listen to, you move from self-control into self-relationship. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? You start asking, what is my body trying to protect me from right now? What did this reaction once make possible for me? What threat does my nervous system still believe is active? Those questions don't pathologize you. They orient you. They turn your symptoms into information. And here's something subtle, but I believe life-changing. Once your nervous system feels that you are listening to it, it starts to soften its intensity. Not because you forced it to, but because it no longer has to shout. Your reactions aren't trying to ruin your life. They're trying to save it using an old map. A map that made sense once. A map your life has now outgrown. So when a reaction shows up, the work is not make this stop. The work is stay, listen, let the message land. Because the moment your nervous system realizes you are here with it now, the reaction no longer has to carry the whole story alone. So here's what matters now. Not fixing your reactions, not mastering your nervous system, not becoming some perfectly regulated version of you. What matters now is relationship. Relationship with your body, relationship with your reactions, relationship with the sensations you've been taught to override. Because nothing in your nervous system unwinds through force. Nothing in your nervous system heals through pressure. And nothing in your nervous system learns safety through being corrected. It learns safety through being met, through being listened to, through being believed when it says something here matters. This is why awareness alone doesn't change patterns, and why discipline alone doesn't change reactions. Because your nervous system isn't a machine, it's a relationship. It organizes itself around what feels safe enough to be real inside. And most of us were never taught how to feel safe while we're feeling something difficult. We were taught to override it, to manage it, to suppress it, to just continue to perform through it. So, of course, the reactions stayed loud. They were never actually met. In the next episode, we're going to talk about what regulation actually is and what it isn't. Why calming down is not the same as feeling safe. Why grounding is not the same as unwinding. And why your nervous system doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be accompanied. We're going to talk about how safety is built in the body, how attunement changes reactions, how tension releases when it finally feels witnessed, and how your system learns new responses without you forcing anything. But for now, there's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to change. Just notice this. What happens in your body when you stop trying to improve it? What happens when you let your reactions exist without explaining them? What happens when you offer yourself 10% more permission to feel what you feel? That's enough. That's already the beginning. Your nervous system doesn't need you to become someone else. It needs you here with it now. Before we end, I want to name something clearly. Nothing in this episode was meant to diagnose you. Nothing was meant to pathologize your reactions. And nothing here was meant to turn your nervous system into another self-improvement project. If there's one thing that I hope you take with you, it's this. Your body is not malfunctioning. It's remembering. It's protecting. It's doing exactly what it learned to do to keep you alive, connected, and oriented to danger. And the fact that those reactions no longer match your current life doesn't make them wrong. It just makes them outdated. And that's not a failure. That's just an update waiting for safety. So if anything stirred for you today, a memory, a sensation, a quiet recognition, you didn't imagine it. You didn't make it up. You're not behind. That was your nervous system letting you feel a little closer to the truth. You don't need to do anything with what comes up or what came up. You don't need to change your behavior. You don't need to force insight into action. Just notice what your body is like right now. Not what it means, not what it should be, just what it's doing. That kind of noticing is not passive. It's relational. It's how your system learns that it's not alone anymore. And that's where real change begins. Until next time, you don't have to override yourself to become someone new. You only have to stay long enough to be met. And remember, you don't have to keep the fire lit alone.